Welcome to something special. Welcome to TEDx. This TEDx event is part of a global conversation that takes place every day in every corner of the world. In schools, in theaters, in workplaces, even in prisons. People gather to hear the best ideas bubbling up in their communities. More than 3,000 TEDx events are held every year in 170 countries. It's a remarkable thing. TEDx events are self-organized under a license from TED, a non-profit organization devoted to discovering and sharing powerful ideas in the form of TED Talks. It's not TED itself, but your local TEDx team of volunteers that has done all the work to put on today's event, including booking all of the speakers. It's this team's ideas, dedication, and time that have made this possible. We really hope today's program sparks an exciting conversation. This is a day for curiosity and for skepticism, for inspiration and for action. The more you enter into it, the more you will take out. And now, on with the show.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 7th annual TEDxBellarmineU event. My name is May Wilcox. I am a grad student in communications here at Bellarmine, and I'm so thrilled to be joining your MCs tonight. So before we begin, I just have a few housekeeping rules. There are 6 exits in this theater. The ones that are on your right are for emergencies only, and if you exit out of them, you will not be able to re-enter. So for intermission, please utilize the exits to your left. To find the bathroom, you're going to go out those doors and to your left once again. We will have one 15-minute intermission about halfway through the program, and that will give everybody an opportunity to explore the lobby, eat any food that's out there, use the bathroom, and even explore the interactive art exhibit. But otherwise, please do remain seated while the speakers are on stage, because trust me, you won't want to miss anything. Please also take this time to silence your cell phones and any electronics you have. Seriously, check and double check them right now. The use of phones or cameras is prohibited tonight, and if you want photos, don't worry about that. We have a team of professional photographers on site who are here to do that for you. And now I am so excited to introduce our MCs for tonight, Abby and Jacob.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome. Glad to see you all here.
I can actually see a couple people this year.
I know,
Normally
that's
it's just a big black curtain.
Black curtain.
Yeah, doesn't look like anything.
No, exactly. Guess that's
Awesome.
good, though.
Well, thanks, everybody. We're so excited to be here. Abby and I are going to be your MCs for the night, both longtime TED members. My name is Jacob Schumann. I've been with TED since the beginning, since 2019. Back when I was a student here, I helped work with Sean Apostle, one of the doctoral professors here, to bring TEDx to the university. And now we're 7-ish years later, and it's crazy.
It's crazy.
Super
We're
exciting.
here. Exactly.
So really excited to be here.
No, exactly. And my name is Abby Bullock. This is my 5th event with TEDxBellarmineU. I was asked to join in 2020.
Begged.
So prime COVID, right.
Begged to join.
Begged.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I was with our virtual event we had in 2021, and the rest is history. I'm glad to be here. 4th time on this stage, and I'm grateful to be here.
Very exciting.
Yes. Glad to be here.
Our theme for tonight's TEDx is liberation. From personal transformations to community change, we're uncovering how liberation shapes us and our spaces. How we redefine freedom and equality for a better future. What can we learn from the stories of people and rise above the boundaries and limitations?
Exactly. And we're glad to be here. All right, so I figured before we get started with the speakers, I want to get a little gauge on the room. So first off, give me a little round of applause if this is your first TEDxBellarmineU event you are attending.
Oh, whoa!
Oh, that's awesome.
That's a lot of people.
Oh, that's so many people. Welcome. Okay, we're gonna go up the list. How about second event? Anybody? Oh my God, that's good.
That's good. People are coming back.
No, exactly.
Yeah, that's nice.
Okay,
That's
you
nice.
liked us. You came back. That's good. Okay, how about third event? It's dwindling.
Yeah,
That's
cool.
okay.
People
Okay,
moved.
here's a good one for you. How about your 7th? Oh my
Hey,
gosh!
Lucas. Yeah.
Yes.
Nice.
Oh my gosh. Well, glad you all are here. Glad you all are back. Thank you to those who returned. So glad to see you all in person, but also we are live streaming. If you see the little iPads, those are capturing a live stream that is on YouTube. If you want to wave, I don't know if they'll see you, but there are viewers. Hi, viewers. Yeah, and if you want to go on YouTube, we have our last few events on YouTube.
Yeah.
Jacob is probably wearing the exact same outfit in every single one of those. That's okay, so you can go and check if you want to.
Yeah.
But yes, we're glad you were here virtual or in person, but I think it is about time we get started with our first speaker.
Let's do
Jacob,
it.
take
Thank
it
you.
away.
Yeah, appreciate
You
it.
all.
Our first speaker is an artist and an educator who believes creativity is essential to life. She now is the illustrative director of the Wildflower Collective. Please give a very warm welcome to our first speaker, Sarah Horrer.
On my phone, I have some of my most treasured words. They're hidden away in a dusty, dark corner alongside forgotten grocery lists and half-finished New Year's resolutions. Every time a phrase strikes me just right, I quickly jot it down before swiping up to leave it between workout goals and a note simply titled, period, with a handwritten question, do you think robots are lonely? Because I don't know, I think they might be. For years, I created in solitude and wrote in solitude. I attended galleries, but kept my own art tucked away. I watched others creating and sharing in community. I could have stayed in this quiet place of creation because I believe in the power of self-expression for your own joy. I'm a firm believer in creating without expectations or pressure. But I'm also a firm believer in the power of community. A few years ago, I summoned the courage to give my poem some fresh air, and I went to an open mic. I thought even if I just stared and no words left me, at least I'd be surrounded by strangers. What I found was community, acceptance, and a home for my words. I want everyone to experience the power of creativity and community. I want everyone to feel the freedom of self-expression. This journey led me to explore how art can enhance communities, both locally and globally, and how it can improve our lives. It made me realize that our path to a better world lies in art and creativity. Finding stories from around the world so we can imagine this world together, where art has impacted us. So first, a step back to 2020, a year that affected everyone. But for Latino communities in LA, COVID's effect was compounded by misinformation, existing health disparities, community distrust, and poor communication. Frontiers in Health had some ideas, but they knew they couldn't tackle it alone. So they teamed up with local artists and community leaders to work alongside public health officials to create art that would promote infection mitigation and mental well-being. What they found was powerful. Not only did the art help make the messages more appealing and relatable, a tentative trust was built between the community and the public health officials. But improved public health isn't the only way that our world is changed by art. It can bring people together in profound ways. Laura Ohl wanted to figure out how art helps in community development and social cohesion. She found that the spaces created by art classes and installations served as platforms for diverse groups to engage with and share in cultural experiences. These shared experiences then spark conversation where people can explore different perspectives and interpretation. This process helps build stronger connections, leading to greater investment in neighborhoods, increased happiness, and better mental health outcomes. There's also an element of safety at play. Here in Louisville, artists worked alongside city planners to create street murals, not only to beautify these areas, but to reduce vehicle pedestrian accidents. And research from Bloomberg Industries shows that streets incorporating art like this see a 50% drop in those accidents. We need more than development and cohesion. We need restoration in our existing communities. Art therapist Jordan Patash and his team guide workshops around the world, using art as a tool for peace building around challenging and divisive topics such as immigration, racism, and politics. His team carefully builds these workshops with guidelines inspired by the work of Dr. King, focusing on empathy and nonviolent problem solving. This approach helps break down barriers, making a real difference in how people connect across divides. And it's not just the folks in the workshops who benefit. As research shows, even our future doctors become more empathetic from engaging in group art. It's clear that art has a profound effect on shaping our capacity for empathy and connection. However, access to art and art therapy can be a barrier for some communities. Jeong Song's method of arts-based community engagement seeks to break down these barriers, benefiting nonprofit organizations and the communities they serve, both socially and financially. In Atlanta, Out of Hand Theater uses their method to support underserved communities. One of their programs, called Shows and Homes, are one-act plays, paired alongside dinner parties with community partners to drive change. They're performed in living rooms across Metro Atlanta every year, with subjects like gun violence, sponsored by Moms Demand Action, and another around mass incarceration with the Georgia Justice Project. As that theater in Atlanta is using storytelling to drive social change, creativity is being merged with climate science by Kate Farewell to drive behavior change. They partner with hundreds of scientists and creatives in producing powerful artistic messages that inspire action. In Scotland, one of their programs focused on communicating the effects of global warming on the Arctic tern. They recruited people to create and distribute these fuzzy knitted terns all over Scotland to raise awareness and empathy around the impact of climate change on seabirds and encourage more climate-minded behavior. But climate change impacts us all. People around the world are increasingly forced to migrate due to resource scarcity, conflict, and extreme weather events. Art plays a crucial role in community building, rebuilding, healing, and messaging. But what people need when living in traumatic circumstances goes way beyond that. They need tools to cope with and process their experience. These photos come from two events where this was employed. The first, a refugee camp in a former Iraqi prison where the Castle Art Project provided children with art supplies to help them express their emotion and make sense of their trauma. In this photo, the words read, "We miss our home." The second, while not guided by a specific project, art became a powerful tool for processing deep collective grief after a devastating earthquake shook Nepal. Reflecting on his painting, the artist Look says, "I hope when viewing my painting, people can find peace and for a moment can forget themselves and just be present here." For Kiran, the urban muralist, he reflects, "Basically, after the earthquake, people became scared of walls. It was crucial for us street artists to get people back into appreciating these walls again with street art. We felt it was necessary for the city to recover, for the growth of the city, but also for street art to flourish again." Within our global and local communities, I believe art's impact on our lives is evident. So how does art lead us as individuals into this liberated world? I know I have focused on the intersection of community and art, but I want to emphasize the power of self-expression for your own joy. What does the science say about the impact of that? Well, researchers in Australia set out to explore whether arts engagement had any impact on mental health and how strong it could be. They found that more arts engagement was linked to feeling better overall, having stronger social connections, increased happiness, and experiencing less intense loneliness, something I think we all would like to experience. The surprising fact is the minimum threshold for these benefits sits at just 2 hours per week. So what would carving out 2 hours of our busy lives look like? not for therapy, just simply for enjoyment. The beauty of it is you don't have to be painting the next Mona Lisa, but I would like you to try painting as a painter myself. You could be attending a concert, taking a pottery class, visiting a local gallery, volunteering at a theater, volunteering at a local gallery, or even going to a book reading or an open mic. Our world is beautiful, and our liberation can be as well. At the start of this talk, I wanted us to imagine a kinder, healthier, more connected and engaged world through art and creativity. But not just for me. I want this for you. I want you to carve out time in your busy life for art. I want you to engage with it for the sheer joy of expression. I want you to find a sense of connection in your community. And over time, I want you to find yourself flourishing, vibrantly alive in our shared colorful canvas of existence. Thank you.
Yes, applause, applause. Amazing. Well, thank you, Sarah. Love to see the response. Amazing. All right. Well, our next speaker is a U.S. Air Force veteran, entrepreneur, and author, and she has served as a military spokesperson worldwide, including for NATO in Afghanistan. And she is now the director of communications for the Kentucky Senate Majority. Everyone give it up for Angela Billings.
I just moved to the D.C. area, taking a job at the Pentagon, where national defense policy is developed, a stone's throw across the Potomac River in our national seat of government. There was hardly a cloud in the sky that morning, and as I made my way up the stone steps, I noticed how they had been worn smooth by the millions who, since 1951, had trudged up them. I skipped up them, giddy like a schoolgirl. Today was important because I had my first press interview with the general officer that I'd set up and prepared. Just before 9 a.m., a plane flew into one of the Twin Towers in New York. The media suggested it may have been deliberate. What mayhem could have taken place inside that plane to cause a crash like that? Thinking it must have been a medical emergency, I came to the front of the desk where we monitored all the news across the national networks. And I watched in shock and disbelief, as many of you did, as that second plane flew into the second tower. Any doubt this was deliberate was completely erased. America was under attack. The Pentagon could be a target too. I considered that for a fleeting moment, went back to my desk and finished up a phone call. But no sooner had I laid the phone in the cradle than that third plane hit the Pentagon. The building and all 6.5 million square feet shook, jarring everyone inside. I heard the metal blinds banging against the window pane as my eyes registered their movement, and I instinctively ducked under my desk. Then I, along with 28,000 people, began spilling out of the nearest exit. And as we did, I saw thick black smoke pouring over top of the building. Traffic was at a standstill. Everything stopped as the plane, the building, and those inside were engulfed in flames. It was chaos, a living nightmare. I found myself at the epicenter of one of the darkest days in American history, September 11th, 2001. Over 3,200 people died at the hands of the terrorists that day. And honoring those who fell victim to al-Qaeda, the U.S. and 31 NATO nations altered their diplomatic approach and stepped into a sovereign nation to ferret out the terrorists within. NATO had the blessing of Afghanistan's leaders, the resources to bear, and offered a real chance at liberation. But what does it truly take to liberate a country from the grip of terror? The global community believed that military intervention, nation building, and could uproot deep-seated oppression and foster freedom. Counterinsurgencies are complex, though, and liberating a country from insurgents, transforming the very hearts and minds of the people who live there, takes more than a generation to take root. Afghanistan taught us a painful truth. Liberation cannot be imposed. It must be cultivated from within. I learned that firsthand in the most vivid way imaginable. As a young Air Force officer, I believed in the promise of change, yet over the years I came to understand how profoundly complex liberation is, especially in a country like Afghanistan that had been at war for decades and where radical Islam is woven into the very cultural fabric. Afghanistan became my classroom, teaching me the fight for freedom demands more than sound strategy and ample resources. Between 2006 and 2007, I was the voice and face for NATO's International Security Assistance Force in Kabul. We put out news releases and held press conferences about NATO's effort. Troops in contact, targeting key Taliban leaders, all while building roads and training our Afghan counterparts for 20 years. I ask you, what would you do if you came face to face with a terrorist? Malala Yousafzai was a 15-year-old Pakistani girl the Taliban shot at point-blank range in the head for the crime of being a girl who dared attend school. Her father knew what education brought to those who possess it and opened an all-girls school so that little girls would have what every little boy had, opportunity. And in 2014, at the age of 17, Malala became the youngest Nobel Peace Prize laureate. That attack made her, now a 27-year-old woman, a global symbol for Afghan women's rights. Speaking to leaders in my career, I encourage them to step into their crisis and own their narrative. Malala has done just that, courageously scoffing at the terrorist. Hers is a powerful story of individual liberation against oppression. Like hers, my father told me, get your education because once you have it, no one can take it away from you. Yet in Afghanistan, that is precisely the case. In 2021, within months of the American withdrawal, the Afghan National Army collapsed under a Taliban offensive. 2 decades of diplomacy, trillions of dollars, and thousands of lives erased in an instant. Last fall, Malala, along with actress Jennifer Lawrence and director Sarah Mani, released a documentary, Bread and Roses, exposing the plight of Afghan women today. After living as a liberated society for 20 years while NATO snuffed out the terrorist within, women in Afghanistan are once again brutally tortured and publicly punished. Malala calls it gender apartheid as she continues to champion Afghan women's rights. Malala explains that in that culture, every man is your brother, every woman your sister. So how do you reason with a family member, an extremist, who's been told the taking of a life in the name of Allah assures them a place in paradise? Quite simply, you won't. And oftentimes, those wielding weapons and instilling terror can't even read. See, the Watson Institute compares literacy rates related to gross domestic product, an indication of a nation's economic health. Afghanistan's literacy rate is only 37%. Naturally, it's mostly men, compared with neighboring Pakistan, whose rates top 58%, and GDP per capita stands at $5,400, nearly 4 times that of Afghanistan. The very future of Afghanistan hinges on whether or not it can invest in women's education, elevating them in society once again. You see, even the extremists know that education is the single element that can lift the powerless from poverty. Just like my father told me, and Malala's told her. These extremists, now fearful for losing their power and control, have forbidden women from even speaking with their mothers, sisters, or friends. Women in Afghanistan are now neither seen nor heard. It is not hopeless, though. Cracks are beginning to emerge in the very rigid interpretation of Islamic law used to justify the oppression of the 20 million women imprisoned there. Some religious leaders are questioning the status quo. This shift offers an opportunity for women in Afghanistan to once again be recognized for their inherent dignity. If this shift is nurtured, it could lead to their liberation, allowing all women to live fully as the human beings they were born to be. Many of you drive a car regularly. You attend sporting events, go to church activities, you go out to eat at your favorite restaurants with family and friends. You have the liberty to pursue that which makes you happy, that which brings you joy. What if those essential elements of your individual liberty were stripped away? Imagine you were forced to cover yourself from head to toe, could go nowhere alone, and were forbidden from making a single sound. If an Afghan woman were your mother, your sister, your friend, would you lift her up to hear her voice? I encourage each and every one of you to tell one person in your circle of influence about what you know now. And share #StandWithWomen in Afghanistan on social media and draw attention to their urgent cry for help. You see, we all have a choice. Women in Afghanistan have little. And if we don't stand with women in Afghanistan today, we may face a new generation of radical extremists threatening our world. This is not just an Afghanistan issue. It is a global human rights issue. Liberate Afghan women once and for all. And thank you for standing with Afghan women today.
Thank you, Angela. Our next speaker is a licensed social worker in Lexington, Kentucky, where she also co-owns her own private practice and teaches at the University of Kentucky. Please welcome Kendra Moulder.
When I was 7, my mom sat me down. Her eyes were steady, her voice was firm. And she said to me, "Kendra, it's time for you to learn how to do some things on your own." Now, as a 7-year-old, I had no clue what my mom was talking about. But I quickly learned. Without explanation, my mom began to teach me things that most kids don't learn until much later, like how to get in and out of the house with a door key, how to do laundry, and even how to cook simple meals. Canned ravioli was my specialty, y'all. I did my homework by myself most evenings, and I put myself to bed most nights. When I turned 8, I decided I wanted to be able to make some extra money. So I asked my neighbors, can I begin to walk their dogs? And they said yes. They didn't always have cash to pay me. So they would pay me in their win and scratch-off lottery tickets that I would walk to the store and cash in as an 8-year-old. Y'all, the 90s were a wild time. But looking back, what I learned was survival lessons. What most people learned much later in life, I had learned at a much younger age. And by the time people were learning these same skills, I had already stepped into adulthood. I had already begun to provide mentally, physically, emotionally, and financially for my family while pursuing my master's and then doctoral degree as a first-generation high school and college graduate. Thank you. To my family, I was a star. Somebody who could overcome anything. But inside, I was exhausted. I hardly slept. Anxiety and depression weighed me down. And the worst part of it all is that I grew to believe that that is what my life was supposed to be like. At one point, I went to my mom and told her, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And she looked at me with those same stern eyes and said to me, Kendra, we don't get a choice. Never let anyone see you cry. What I didn't know my mom was teaching me is what generations of women had already learned: how to be a strong Black woman. Best explained by social learning theory, we learn through modeling, imitating, and observing. And what I learned about being a Black woman was directly modeled by my mother. So I did exactly what I knew to do. I hid my pain, often behind a smile. I showed up for everyone else, even if it was at my own demise, and I never showed any weakness. I was the epitome of what it meant to show up as a strong Black woman. Until one day when everything changed. I was supporting someone in the emergency room. I had to pick up my kids from school in a couple of hours, and I was listening to an online lecture, and the professor began to speak about something that I had never heard of before: the strong Black woman schema. Under this schema is the societal expectation that Black women must show up as selfless caregivers, show unparalleled strength, and be emotionally stoic, or as you see up there, really emotionally suppressant. And then it hit me. She was describing my life. Before this moment, I was blind to the larger picture. My life revolved around raising my 3 boys. And even after God called one of them home after a courageous battle with cancer, I still showed up every day and did what I knew to do by what I learned as being a strong Black woman. But then came along my amazing, now 4-year-old daughter, Bella, who is my light, and ultimately, she became my why. Because when I looked at Bella, I knew that I did not want Bella to be subjected to the same societal expectations that I had been stifled by for so long. I knew I had to carve a new path, but not just for Bella, but for all the Black women and the Black girls who live lives that look just like mine. Because what we know is that humanity has truly stifled our voices as Black women and stolen so much from us before we even have gotten a chance to live. But it wasn't just about me. So I had a new mission. And my mission became a mission to free generations of women from these same toxic expectations, a mission for liberation so that we can be free of all this stress and anxiety, and a mission for change so that no one else has to have the same experiences that we have. Because as far back as slavery, Black women have been expected to show up for everyone but ourselves. And this expectation didn't end with slavery. It only evolved. When I began working in the school systems, I began to see these same traits in the Black girls that I served. And I noticed 2 trends. One, we had the overachievers. These young girls are hardworking. They are incredible, but they're often burdened by perfectionism. And second, they're the rebels. Those are my people. These girls do everything that they can do to buck societal expectations, but it often comes at the cost of being labeled as angry and defiant. And no matter where these girls fell in this paradigm, it became very clear. We are failing our Black girls. So what do? How do we help our girls break free from this transgenerational toxic cycle that has taken our lives for so long? Perhaps it is most crucial that we create safe spaces. Safe spaces are places where our Black girls can go to be their most vulnerable selves. In this safe space, our black girls are taught that it is okay to feel, it is okay to cry, and it is okay to be human, while simultaneously learning ways to communicate what they're feeling and what they're experiencing and support one another through it. Black women thrive in communities, and so do our black girls. By creating community, we have spaces where we can go with one another in support and talk about how we experience day-to-day microaggressions, such as "don't touch my hair," and be able to set those boundaries with one another and reinforce that we are not property, but we are people, just like everyone else. And last, but definitely not least, we have to give our black girls voices. Our black girls deserve to be heard. Ursula Burns said it best when she said, "I didn't learn to be quiet when I had an opinion. The reason why they knew who I am was because I told them." Right now, many of our black girls are screaming, begging to be heard. In others, they're silent, never given a chance to speak. As educators, as community leaders, or just as people who care, it is our jobs to create safe spaces, to build community, and to give our black girls voices. It is our jobs to teach them that this is not what the world has to be, because none of our black girls should have to carry the weight of the world on their shoulders without help and without hope. Because one day, when that black girl has the opportunity to stand in front of you and look out, she'll be able to proudly say, "Someone cared enough to hear me, to see me, and most of all, to free me." Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you to Kendra. Our next speaker is a Bellarmine alum, and she's a vocalist, radio host, and educator. By day, she serves as a music education major and an afternoon host at 90.5 WULL, and by night, she performs jazz. So everyone, please welcome Kiana Dell.
Y'all all right? All right. I'm going to first connect with you in the only way that my soul knows how, on a soul level. I wish I knew how it would feel to be free. I wish I could break all the chains holding me. I wish I could say all I'm longing to say. I'd say it loud, say it clear, for the whole round world to hear. Those words were written by lyricist Dick Dallas, with music by jazz musician Billy Taylor. Most notably, it was popularized by Nina Simone in 1967 and became an anthem for the civil rights movement. Please ruminate on those words in our time together. Even before I knew what it really meant, I've been using my voice for liberation. My mom says I've been singing since before I could talk. My earliest memories include begging to sing in church. I'd pick a familiar hymn, usually the exact same one. What can wash away my sin? Nothing but the blood of Jesus. If you were raised in a black church, you'll know. I'd hop up to the mic, I'd sing a cappella, sometimes with the help of our church pianist Helen. At such a young age, I didn't really understand what was being taught in church. I just knew that my goal was to feel the Spirit. I came to understand that the only time I ever felt otherworldly was when I was singing. Even surrounded by the voices of the entire congregation, that too felt like freedom. I was born in a rural, predominantly white Kentucky farm town in the 90s, yet social norms were nearly non-existent behind the walls of my home. My mom, the dictionary definition of resilience, was the head of our household. At the time, I didn't realize it was the world outside of our home that called for her to build those walls. She built them around her own heart and around my sister and I as a result. My mother had been taught from her mother before her that assimilation was protection, and she carried on from there. She thought the shield that she had created for us at home saved us from the harshness of the world. Lay low, blend in, be seen, not heard. But when I looked at our life, I saw that we lived comfortably in an upper middle class, two-parent, loving, functioning home. That's a privilege. Reflecting on that, I can see that it made the circumstances of my upbringing both fortunate and unfortunate. Fortunately, this meant that I have ever only known divides by staring across a fissure and plotting how I was going to get to the other side. I was never taught to take no for an answer. It never occurred to me that there would be people intentionally placing obstacles in my path. Unfortunately, this meant that I was unaware of the weight of my blackness and my gender outside of my walls of safety. I remember seeing and feeling the things that othered me in front of my white peers. The color of my skin, the texture of my hair, the whispers, the comments. I spent the next several years feeling like an outsider. As a coping mechanism, I created a stage persona of myself. Kiana Benhoff, no longer. Kiana Dell is here. She is fearless, she has all the accolades, and she has a perfect voice. I played a character to move throughout the world because I had just become acutely aware of my place within it. My mom's notes on assimilation danced in the back of my head, but I've always yearned to be seen and heard. With the help of my parents, I started to study music seriously. Piano and vocal lessons by age 7, singing classically at age 12, performing on stage by age 13. I was learning the proper breathing techniques, how to train and condition my diaphragm, how to actively listen. I was training my voice, technically, but unbeknownst to little me, I was training to use my voice as a tool for liberation. I loved any and every excuse to be in front of a crowd, and I even remember the first time I felt stage fright. It didn't come naturally to me. Again, it was a learned othering that made me feel further from myself. What felt instinctual was the feeling I felt when I was singing. Being lost in the flow state outweighed everything, and using my voice made me invincible. And that's not a coincidence, and it's not a talent reserved for people who are vocally gifted. Using our voices is a form of somatic healing, or somatic experiencing. The word somatic comes from the Greek prefix soma, meaning body. This comes from Dr. Peter Levine's concept of healing trauma called somatic experiencing. Defining it in the most basic way, Levine discovered that somatic experiencing includes techniques that help us identify how the body heals itself through a mind-body connection that combines our emotional and our physical selves. We typically use pretty poetic words to describe how our emotions feel in our bodies, right? A lump in our throat when we're crying, butterflies in our stomach when we're excited, fire in our chests when we're angry. But what if those feelings could identify and help us emotionally regulate in the moment? According to Somatic Experiencing International, this technique is primarily used to address trauma and stress-related disorders like PTSD. But we can pull somatic techniques in our mindfulness practice. One of those being a technique called sensory engagement, which is just what it sounds like, engaging our 5 senses. Think about the very first way that we express our needs as babies, through cooing and crying. We haven't yet grasped the concept of language. We haven't yet gotten a handle on how to understand or communicate our emotions, but we learn quickly that when we verbalize, breathing deeply, feeling that vibration in our throats, our needs are met. In a study on the neurobiology of human crying, Dr. Lauren M. Bilsma shows us that our brains quickly form that pathway. Before we even form so much as a coo, we have to get a handle on our life force, our breath. So let's master our life force. I'll show you a technique I use with my vocal students that can prepare you for your next public address, your next performance, your next trip to the crowded grocery store. First, we'll breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth. One more for good measure, in through the nose and out through the mouth. And then with my students, I give that a pulse. When singing, counting your phrases is key. So we'll breathe in, 2, 3, 4, and out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This requires you to be really present in your body, ensuring that you're taking in enough air and releasing it in a manner that's slow and controlled. This is a technique I'll use when anxious or overwhelmed to remind my brain who's in control. As a vocalist and as a meditator, breathing techniques are your foundation. Our voices can be tools for healing, for self-regulating, for being fully present in the moment by returning back to your most primal instinct. This is a little out of the box for our format. They were skeptical to let me do this, but I'd like to use some ancestral wisdom to make music together in a call and response activity. Call and response is an African tradition, a big pillar in jazz, and it serves as a central feature in storytelling, work songs, and community gatherings. The leader will call out a phrase, the group responds, sometimes in repetition or an answer. It's a musical and social tool we still hear today, most commonly in gospel music, but more than a rhetorical or a musical device, call and response is at its core human connection. So let's try it together. We're going to use an affirmation from John Baptiste's Stay Human project. Please repeat after me. I feel good. I feel free. I feel fine just being me. I feel good today. Feel so good today. Beautiful, beautiful. Sit in that, take a breath, and remember to feel free just being you. Now, I want to go back to Miss Nina Simone's call for freedom to see if you reflect on it differently than you did before our conversation. Pushing through some nerves, I'll sing it a cappella in honor of my inner child. Well, I wish I could be like a bird in the sky. How sweet it would be if I found I could fly. Oh, I'd soar to the sun and look down at the sea. Then you'd sing, 'cause I know, yeah. Then I'd sing, 'cause I know how it feels to be free. Liberation. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Liberation, to me as a black woman, can often feel difficult within the confines of our country's societal barriers. However, the question is, how would it feel to be free? I can't tell you what freedom looks like for you, but I create, call for, carve out freedom for myself in rooms like this very one. Anytime you witness me singing, anytime you sing with me, you're witnessing my own call for freedom like my ancestors before me. So if you take anything at all away from this, take away using your voice. Take away using your life force. Advocate for yourself. Advocate for your loved ones. Advocate for those less fortunate than you. Take a deep breath. Center yourself. And call. Thank you.
Thank you to Kiana, and thank you to all of our speakers so far. Isn't this just the most impressive group? This is awesome. All right, well, in just a few moments, we will be taking a 15-minute intermission, so please feel free to explore the lobby, enjoy the food and drinks that are still out there, and check out the bathrooms. Check out the bathrooms. They're located to your left when you go out of these doors. Our very first speaker, Sarah Horrer, has set up an interactive art exhibit in the Black Box Theater, which is right across the lobby from here, and we really encourage you to check it out. There's no art skills required, but it's a lot of fun. Now, I do need to let you know that the auditorium will be closing. The doors to the auditorium will close after the 15-minute intermission, and if you're not back in your seats, we unfortunately can't let you back in. So please be sure that you return in a timely manner, and when you come back, please don't bring any food or drinks from the lobby into the theater. All right, see you all in 15 minutes.
All right, everyone, welcome back. Hello.
I see some of the staff crawling in front of us right now. This is great.
Oh, this is,
Yeah,
Yeah, we
seems
give
like
you-
everybody's ready for us to be back out here.
you're right.
A few people still getting in their
So a few stragglers.
seats.
We can give
Some
you a
people
second.
crawling under seats.
Seats, all the things, yeah.
Some people
Good job.
jumping over one seat to get to another seat. I don't know why they're doing that. That's cool.
That's
I
really
like being
cool.
able to see.
No, exactly.
It's kind of cool.
There you go, okay.
Awesome.
Ooh,
Are you guys having fun so far?
Yeah?
Yeah.
There we
Pretty
go.
cool. Well, that's good because you're trapped in here. So you cannot leave again. As you were told by May, the auditorium doors are closed. Sorry.
Sorry about that.
I saw someone's fanning themselves because I guess it's a little warm.
Yeah,
And I thought
oh.
it was someone on our team going, "Stop saying that." And I was
Stop
like, "Oh no!"
talking.
I was like, "Oh gosh, what am I doing wrong?"
I mean, that would happen, no.
Yeah, it would happen, but not this time.
No, exactly. But yes, we thought before we move on to our next speaker, we want to give a shout out to our lovely TEDx core team, everyone that is making this happen tonight. We wanted to give a shout out to a few specific people. So first off, I wanted to acknowledge our lovely, I guess you could say, founders, co-owners, Sean and Chrissy Apostle. They are somewhere in this room, but give them a round of applause. Wouldn't be here without them. We appreciate them immensely. Love them. We also wanted to acknowledge our lovely front of house people. They are probably lingering on the sides of these walls here. You've
They're
seen them out
over
in the
here.
lobby. They're everywhere, and we
One's
love
right
them
there.
a lot. Yeah, and we love
Yeah.
them. Yeah, let's clap. Yeah, let's clap for all of them. Let's do it. We appreciate them a lot. And we have our lovely tech people. We have William and Sydney there in the back. You may see them hiding back there. Yeah, they're waving. Yes, making us look nice and sound nice. We
Yeah.
appreciate them. And there are more people back here, our lovely back of house
You
people,
don't get to see
Kat,
them.
Jen. We
Yeah.
appreciate them immensely. Round of applause for them, getting us mic'd up. We appreciate them a lot. All these people make this event what it is, and we could not be more grateful. We are just one little piece of that.
100%.
All right,
Yeah.
of course. All right. Well, now I think we should give a round of applause for how awesome this sign is.
Isn't that amazing?
Over here. Isn't that so cool?
They hand make this
It's so
every
cool.
year.
We made this.
It's amazing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the person who came up with the concept for this lovely art is a BU student named Carlos Vega.
Woo!
Yes, he is majoring in DAT in photography here at Bellarmine. And now we are going to let him talk about the sign for a couple of minutes. So everyone give a round of applause for Carlos Vega.
Thank you. What does liberation look like? If we ask 10 people, we won't get the same answer. For some people, it's breaking free from oppression. For others, it's reclaiming an identity that was stolen from them. And for many, it's simply the right to exist without fear. This artwork isn't just mine. It is a collection of voices, of dreams that refuse to be silenced. And it's important. The nice thing about community art is that it's a collective type of work. Liberation is often seen as an individual pursuit, breaking chains, tearing down walls, but real liberation, it doesn't happen in isolation. It happens when we recognize that our freedoms are intertwined, that my liberation is tied to yours, and that none of us are truly free until all of us are. Graffiti, thank you. Graffiti, just like liberation, is disruptive. It refuses to be ignored, and it takes space where space has been denied. And that's the beauty, again, about community art. So this sign, once blank, it is now a declaration. It is a reminder that we are here, that we are many, and that together we are creating a future with our own hands. So when you look at this piece, don't just see the art. See the stories, the hands that shaped it, and the voices that came together to say, we will not wait for liberation to be given. We are taking it, we are making it here together. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos, and thank you for the beautiful sign. Another round of applause for the beautiful sign. All right, our next speaker is an assistant professor of U.S. history right here at Bellarmine University with a PhD from the Graduate Center, CUNY, specializing in cultural history, fashion, and gender. Please welcome Laura Ping.
When I was a little girl, I boycotted pants. I was in my princess phase, and I believed that girls wore dresses, especially red dresses. This became complicated when I went to kindergarten and spent recesses hanging upside down, my legs locked over the top of monkey bars, and my dress over my face. Maybe my obsession with dresses had to do with Barbie or Disney, but in 1989, this was also part of American society. Even in the US government, there was an unofficial rule that congresswomen had to wear dresses or skirts to work. Writing for PBS NewsHour, Juliet Linderman reminds us that in 1969, Representative Charlotte T. Reed challenged this rule when she wore a black pantsuit to work. This caused such a spectacle that women didn't wear pants to Congress again until 1993, when a group of female senators coordinated wearing pantsuits. I didn't wear pantsuits in kindergarten, but my mom did make me wear shorts underneath my dresses to offer some coverage and make it a little bit easier to climb on the monkey bars. Little did my mom or I know, however, that in the 1850s, a group of women writing to the women's rights newspaper, The Lily, debated whether or not they should wear pants underneath their dresses for practicality. In 1851, a group of these women adopted a knee-length skirt with trousers underneath called the Bloomer costume after the Lily's editor, Amelia Bloomer. Women that adopted the Bloomer costume were challenging the fashionable hourglass silhouette. Mainstream beauty standards linked this silhouette to femininity, and even today, women like Kim Kardashian wear hourglass silhouettes to exemplify beauty. But before the invention of spandex, women had to wear lots of layers of heavy, tight clothes to get those curves. And all of that fabric made it difficult to move. Women that adopted the Bloomer argued that women's clothing could be and should be practical. These women described gardening and walking outdoors as difficult while wearing long dresses. One woman claimed that it was nearly impossible to carry her baby, hold a candle, and walk upstairs while wearing a long dress. The Bloomer offered mobility, and its wearers also argued that it proved that women were not physically weak. They hoped that society would soon realize that women were equal in other ways too. But the Bloomer failed because its supporters overlooked a key factor in how one chooses their clothing. While the Bloomer wearers found the clothing empowering, fashion did not mean the same thing to all people. For example, the Bloomer wasn't empowering to all people assigned female at birth. As Jen Mannion tells us in their book, Female Husbands, A Trans History, female husbands, or individuals assigned female at birth who took on the social, legal, and economic roles typically assigned men, often wore clothing that was also typically assigned to men. Now, they might have done so because of the type of labor they were performing, or because they lived their lives as men. But for these individuals, there was nothing empowering about the Bloomer. They didn't link their clothing to politics. They wanted to be inconspicuous, not symbols open for ridicule. For some women, fashion was the symbol of liberation. Former enslaved women, Sojourner Truth and Harriet Tubman, were both asked to wear the Bloomer. Sojourner said no. It looked too much like the clothing she'd worn while enslaved. Harriet did wear the Bloomer, but only when leading enslaved persons to freedom because it was easier to run in. At home, she only wore long dresses. For both Sojourner and Harriet, clothing was an important indicator of liberation and also class status. And this was true of women that were born free as well. Philadelphia educator Charlotte Fortin Grimke described once wearing the Bloomer to climb a tree and pick cherries. Another time, she wore it to a costume party. Now, she didn't say why, but she described regretting wearing the Bloomer to that party. Maybe she got the wrong kind of attention. These examples show that articles of clothing that made one group feel liberated did not necessarily have the same effect for all people. For some people, embracing fashion was the privilege, not rejecting it. Clothing can be used as a lens with which to understand power structures in American history and how they've changed over time. When the 19th Amendment was ratified, granting women the right to vote in 1920, women bobbed their hair, they shortened their skirts, and they abandoned corsets. Now, this was a direct challenge to the hourglass silhouette. And as Einov Rabinovich Fox tells us in her book, Dressed for Freedom, the simultaneous development of mass-produced clothing also created inexpensive fashion that was easily acceptable to women of color and poor women. When Lane Bryant developed her namesake brand, she did so because she wanted to accommodate fuller figures. And the loose flapper dress was a style and a shape that fit all kinds of body types. Although racism was rampant in America at the time, when women of color embraced these styles, makeup, shortened skirts, bobbed hair, they were claiming racial equality for themselves. But women were not the only ones that were pushing back against conservative clothing in the first half of the 20th century. By the 1940s, the zoot suit, with its padded shoulders, its long jacket, its wide-legged pants, and its pegged ankles, was becoming popular with minority young men. For these Black and Latino men, the bagginess of the zoot suit signaled a shift from the Great Depression. During the Depression, most families couldn't afford new clothing, let alone extra fabric. And the bright colors and the drape of the zoot suit indicated luxury for these men. It also denoted a sense of community pride. But the lavishness of the zoot suit also incited racial hostility. The infamy of the 1943 zoot suit riots, when a group of white sailors attacked Latino men, has linked this clothing to race riots. But it was also worn by social activists throughout the 1960s. In the same decade that Charlotte Reed wore a pantsuit on the House floor and Chicano activists were wearing the zoot suit, civil rights activists also embraced the politicization of fashion. As Tanisha Ford tells us in her book, Liberated Threads, Black civil rights workers initially wore nice clothing to protest. But after having food thrown at them and fire hoses turned on them, their hair and clothes were ruined. They adopted denim clothing and began wearing their hair natural because it was easier to maintain. These styles were washable, and it made civil rights workers more accessible to the rural Southern populations that already wore denim and had natural hair for practicality. In fighting for legal equality, civil rights activists liberated their bodies and, okay. So while the bloomer fit a range of body types, and oh my God, during both women and men, regardless of how they felt about their clothing, used fashion to politicize their bodies and to protest racial and gender equality. Fashion also reveals that minorities had a different relationship to clothing than the dominant culture. I didn't realize when I was in kindergarten that wearing pants underneath my dress had any political significance. I didn't realize that clothing could restrict or liberate. But as a historian, I study the ways in which fashion is a symbol and a tool of liberation. If we think about the ways in which fashion is used on social media, if we think about the ways in which size inclusivity is promoted on TikTok and Facebook and Instagram, we see that fashion is still relevant. I encourage you to consider the ways in which power structures in your life may or may not affect what you wear, whether or not your clothing is restrictive. Consider fashion to be a nonverbal language, a mainstream means of liberating one's body. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Laura. Our next speaker founded the Street Widows Foundation after losing her husband to gun violence. As a speaker and community organizer, she empowers others to overcome their challenges. Everyone, please give a round of applause to Ashley Johnson.
It was a rainy Wednesday night. I was cooking dinner, singing Beyonce, getting ready to start on my cornbread when I realized I was all out of eggs. Don't you hate when that happens? But no big deal. Eggs were still 99 cents back then. And, and my husband needed to go to the gas station anyway, so he said he'd grab eggs and be right back. And sure enough, 20 minutes later, there was a knock at the door. But it wasn't my husband. It was police telling me he had been shot and killed 1 block away from our home at the gas station. I was 29 years old with the toddler at my feet and the infant on my hip. In Atlanta, it was just me and my babies. All of my family 6 hours away in Kentucky. I didn't know who did this, why, did they know where we live, would they come back to our house at night? My husband was killed in our only car, and so I couldn't drive to stay at a hotel. I called 2 Ubers, and neither would take me without car seats. It was the scariest night of my life. In the blink of an eye, everything changed. I was left with a mountain of grief and an even higher mountain of expenses. For safety reasons, immediately within those first 30 days, I moved to a new home and bought a new car. And quickly, I learned why more than half of widowed women live paycheck to paycheck. The financial weight alone is enough to crush anyone. And then you add the stigma, the whispers and stares when I returned to work, the bravest who'd walk right up and ask, "I'm so sorry, but what happened?" And as you can imagine, their questions and assumptions only worsened once I mentioned gun violence. How many of you have already made an assumption? My son's principal did. A young Black family driving a nice car, her kids attend a top school, the husband was shot and killed. He must be a drug dealer, a gang member, or it's Atlanta, maybe she's a stripper. Listen, figuring out how to be a solo parent was enough without this lady's microaggressions every time I went to my son's school. And while I say that the normal aspects of learning to be a solo parent were hard enough, I had more than normal. My son's autism diagnosis came just about a month after we lost his dad. And suddenly I'm making important medical decisions that I don't understand, and I don't have his dad here to talk to about any of it. But it wasn't just the autism, it was my daughter's first birthday, her first words. Every holiday, every milestone, an entire year of firsts to remind me of his absence and my inability to feel it. Just when I thought, whew, we survived the first year, a windstorm caused a huge tree to fall on our new home. It almost crushed my son and I, trapped my daughter in her room, and left us homeless, living out of my car from hotel to hotel. And I remember our last night, I had run out of money, run out of people to ask for money. Checkout was 10:30 a.m., and I had no idea what I was going to do. And I just cried, and I asked, why me? I did everything right. I went to college, I got good grades, I got married, I had kids. Why am I left out in the streets to fend for myself like I'm a widow of the street? A street widow. But the crazy thing about this life that we live is that it is only through tragedy that superheroes are born. And Batman lost both of his parents to become Batman. Tyler Perry lived out of his card to become Tyler Perry. And I had to lose my husband to become Ashley Johnson, founder of the Street Widows Foundation. And it's been through my work with the foundation and the Street Widows podcast that I've come to understand I'm not alone at all. There were 47,000 victims of gun violence in 2023 alone. Y'all, that's enough to fill Madison Square Garden twice. And it doesn't stop there. Every day, overdose deaths and incarceration shatter families, leaving millions of street widows to do the impossible. I mean, think about how difficult it is raising successful children under normal circumstances. I mean, we all have that one, am I right? Now, think about when your child's 60% more likely to be arrested before their 18th birthday. Not because they did anything, just the cards they were dealt. Our children are at higher risk for mental health issues, substance use, incarceration, drugs, violence, and they don't stand a chance against any of that without a strong parent leading them. And without the proper support, street widows don't stand a chance at being that strong parent. This is why street widows should have the first seat at any table planning violence reduction strategies. It's why our policemen should be required to ask, how many children are impacted by this loss when they arrive at the scene of a homicide? It's why our court system should be required to report incarcerated parental rates. This sounds like common sense to me. And the thing about street widows is that we have the power to change, but we need sidekicks to help us out. And while life has taught me that I am a superhero, it's also taught me that every superhero needs a sidekick. Just a couple days ago, on February 19th, 2025, I reached the 5-year widowhood mark. And I say that with a smile on my face because I'm proud of all the things I survived beyond my wildest dreams in the past 5 years, but it truly took a village. Now, I know that solving gun violence sounds impossible, but that's what superheroes and sidekicks are for. The impossible. Listen, I know you didn't sign up, but today it's sidekick training. That's my superhero voice. Yeah, you all ready to become sidekicks? Listen, there's 4 rules that you must know about being a sidekick. Rule number 1, don't pry. We know that you want to know what happened. And if we're ready to tell you, we will share that. But asking insensitive questions, it's like picking at a scab. It reopens healing wounds for widows. Number 2, create space, whether it's in your professional life, your personal life, with street widows you know or you meet. Hear their stories. Listen to understand their experience and how you can support. Number 3, guys, don't assume. Remember my son's principal, who I'm pretty sure she assumed I was a stripper by the color of my skin, the curves of my hips, and the last one, I'll kind of give it to her. We are in Atlanta, or we were, so, But those microaggressions turned macro when I finally stood up to her and said, I have flexibility with my time during the day because I'm a real estate broker. And her response was, oh, good for you. Imagine had I told her, I hold a bachelor's degree in journalism, a master's degree in organizational communication, a real estate broker's license in the state of Georgia, and a real estate salesperson's license in the state of Kentucky. Rule number 4, for the love of God, no more lasagna. I know that at these rates, we're running out of casseroles to bring the grieving, but how much lasagna can a widow take? Sheesh. Listen, on a serious note, street widows can be the result of gun violence in Louisville, a vigilante shooter in New York, or a school shooting in Texas. There is no monopoly on grief, and you never know how much you have in common with those who you judge until you become one of them. Street widows are superheroes. We shouldn't have to be, but we are. We are this nation's greatest untapped resource. We are the unexplored path to liberation from gun violence in America. And that's an idea worth sharing.
Thank you, Ashley. You're getting a standing ovation. You didn't get to see it because you walked back there. I wanted to let you know. Our next speakers and last speakers are the Bibelhauser brothers. They will share their final presentation and performance for the evening. The Bibelhauser brothers are a bluegrass country soul group. You can kind of hear them a little bit right now. Aaron, a session musician and host of Bluegrass Evolution on WFPK, one of my favorite stations to listen to, writes for top artists, while Adam is known for his unique bass style. Along with bandmates Jeff Gursey and Steve Cooley, they've performed with icons like Dillard's and Vince Gill. Aaron Bibelhauser, guitar and vocal. Adam, bass and vocal. Jeff, mandolin. Steve, banjo. And give it up for all the Bibelhauser brothers.
How's everybody doing? My name's Aaron Bibelhauser, and I'm sure grateful to be here in your company with the wonderful presenters that have been here today. My friend Steve Cooley, Jeff Gursey, and my evil twin brother, Adam Bibelhauser. It's pretty unprecedented, I think, to have musicians play at a TED Talk event, and we're really grateful to be one of those exceptions. And it's even more rare to have a hillbilly band up here. So we're going to render you some bluegrass tunes that we made up ourselves, starting with this one. Daylight shining through the curtains, creeping in. The rise and the fall of your breath while you're sleeping in. As I gaze upon your face and I wonder, are you dreaming of me in your slumber? Or am I the one that's dreaming of you lying in my bed? Or all these thoughts just make believe residing in my head? Should the morning find me all alone and keep, then I'd close my eyes and I'd sleep 1,000 years. 1,000 years. Big old moon shining all night long, from dusk to dawn. Nothing lasts forever, someday we'll all be gone. What I'd give is for today to never end, or to know that when tomorrow comes, we do it all again. Am I the one that's dreaming of you lying in my bed? Or All these thoughts just make believe residing in my head. Should the morning find me all alone in tears, then I'd close my eyes and I'd sleep 1,000 years. 1,000 years. Well, I'd sleep 1,000 years. Am I the one that's dreaming of you lying in my bed? Or all these thoughts just make believe residing in my head? Should the morning find me all alone in tears, then I'd close my eyes. I bid this world goodbye, 'cause I'd have no fear, and I'd hold you dear while I sleep 1,000 years. I'd sleep 1,000 years. Thank you so very, very kindly. Thank you. It feels like sort of we feel like sort of Renaissance folks up here playing and singing around one microphone. It's not something we get to do very often. It feels really fun. Usually we're spread out on a stage somewhere, but it's great. It's great to be up here doing it sort of mostly old school style. And I should say, speaking of old school, I should say a quick word about this old 5-string banjo that's well over, or close to 100 years old now. Not as old as the guy playing it. A big old hand for Steve Cooley, one of my biggest heroes on the planet. And this guy playing the mandolin over here is no stranger to you guys than he is to anybody else on the planet. He's also one of my favorite people on earth, Jeff Guernsey playing the mandolin here. So part of making bluegrass music, much like other sort of standardized art forms, like playing the blues or playing jazz music, or even in some ways some classical music, when you subtract the portion of virtuosity being necessary for classical music, sort of a necessary component of classical music. But bluegrass music is one of these things that you get to work within a little outline of what a bluegrass song ought to sound like. Of course, that first song, we broke a few of those rules, and that's my favorite part about playing bluegrass music is drawing a little outline of what we ought to do and then scribbling all inside and outside of those lines. Past another city and another town, my own true lover wants me to stay. You know it won't be long and I'll be on my way through Pennsylvania, down in between Cincinnati, Louisville to New Orleans. But I make my return to you someday. No, it won't be long and I'll be on my way. You know I'd stay here for a while, and that just ain't my style. Telling you that I'd stay, it's a game that I can't play. I'll be on my way through Pennsylvania, down in between Cincinnati, Louisville, to New Orleans. Thank you so much. That last tune I was commissioned to write for the celebration of the Belle of Louisville turning 100 years old, which happened probably about 10 years ago now. So that's talking about this banjo that's about the same age as the historic steamboat that's sitting down there in the flooded Ohio River right now. In high water, yeah. Well, I successfully didn't mention the word liberation during my first little segment, but we talked around the subject. But I do want to say that a big part of my little journey personally in making music and sharing it with other folks has been abandoning ship on my old day job. And it goes without saying, if anybody out there is an art creator of any sort, there is a certain liberating feeling of letting go of that, a little bit of that security and trading it for a whole lot of love. I'm really grateful for that situation, grateful for these guys up here. So we're gonna share you one more song before we go. This one's a true story. And it's called Blue Collar Dreams. Aching back, blood, tears, and sweat. Blue-collar dreams keep me in debt. I can't tell you why I don't leave this old one-horse town behind. Well, my good intentions withered on the vine. Hustling for nickels, and I can't save a dime. Try to walk that straight and narrow line. Well, I need a small vacation, but I ain't got the time. Bright and early, I'll be back to the grind with an aching back, blood, tears, and sweat. Blue-collar dreams keep me in debt. Can't tell you why I don't leave this old one-horse town behind. While my good intentions withered on the vine. Paycheck ain't the way things ought to be. Hard times, they seem to never end. Yesterday, the groceries, today I'll pay the rent. By Friday, all my money will be spent. With an aching back, blood, tears, and sweat. Blue-collar dreams keep me in debt. Can't tell you why I don't leave this old one-horse town behind. While my good intentions withered on the vine. With an aching back, blood, tears, and sweat. Blue-collar dreams keep me in debt. Can't tell you why I don't leave this old one-horse town behind. While my good intentions withered on the vine. Well, I'll kick the can a little further down the line. While my good intentions withered on the vine. Thank you all so very much. We're the Beeblehauser brothers from Louisville, Kentucky.
We came
Good,
out too early.
good. Yeah, we got
Thank you, Beeblehauser brothers.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. For those of you that know Ashley, you will be able to snag a really nice video, or not a good video, of us dancing backstage
Yeah,
in
you'd
a
be
line
clapping for that
dance,
too.
and then realizing that we could potentially fall through the curtain if anything goes
If anything
wrong.
goes
but
wrong.
it was very, very fun.
It was some good dancing.
Yeah,
Absolutely. You'd be clapping for that
fantastic.
too, for
Yeah.
sure. Yes. But all right, now it is time to go, unfortunately, so that everyone on this team can let out a collective sigh of relief. Yeah, thank you. But we, of course, have some thank yous before we go. Yes, so...
I want to make a quick reference. The reason she giggled is for about 3 years, thanks to you, I
Yeah,
think.
it is me.
We have this giant bye-bye on one of the slides. It just says bye-bye, and that's it.
Literally a third of
And
the
so-
slide.
yeah, it's a third of the slide, and it's gigantic, and so it makes us laugh every time.
Yes, exactly.
So
That's right.
had to reference it.
Absolutely, yes,
And
thank
it's
you.
never been taken off.
Never taken. It
Yeah.
will never be taken.
And it's not useful.
Excuse me. Whatever. It's fine. Anyway, thank yous. So we would like, first off, to thank the comm department for their support, the DAT program, the art department, theater department, and of course, all the students, faculty, and staff who volunteered. Thank you very, very much.
Yes.
Yeah, there we go.
Sure. Clap as we go. Clap as we go. We'd also like to thank our sponsors. One Source Discovery, Third Turn Brewing, Alani, Institute for Media, Culture, and Ethics, Barstown Bourbon Company, food, Bellarmine Physical Therapy.
And some more sponsors. O'Shea's, of course, which they encourage you to go there after this event. Feel
Yeah,
free.
so
Let's do it.
that's super exciting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And then we'd like to thank Sunnergoss Coffee, Mercy Academy, Tab the Traveling Trainer, and NPC Productions. Thank you very much. Let's give them all a big round of applause. Yes. Thank you for your support.
Please stick around. Please stick around. This is one of our favorite parts of the event. Enjoy the reception. Talk with each of our speakers. Talk with people around here. Talk with us if you want to. And then, as always, as we like to end, in the spirit of Bellarmine, remember to always explore the world. Does anybody know it? And start
Wow.
within. That was sad.
That was sad.
Explore the world and start within. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for coming.
He did a big